On December 19th, 1959, Christine's brother Daniel made a horrifying discovery that would haunt him forever. His sister, her husband Cliff, and their 2 young children had been brutally murdered in their rural Florida farmhouse. Christmas presents lay wrapped in the attic, never to be opened. Holiday carols the children had been learning would never be sung. The Walker family murders shocked the peaceful community of Osprey, Florida, and launched one of the state's most extensive investigations. 4 lives ended, leaving behind a crime scene that defied easy explanation. Was it robbery gone wrong, a land dispute turned deadly, or something far more sinister? The case takes a stunning turn when investigators discover a chilling connection to another infamous family murder, the Clutter killings immortalized in Truman Capote's In Cold Blood. Could the same killers who terrorized Kansas have struck again in Florida just weeks later? Join me as we explore the psychological profile of a calculated predator, examine the evidence that's kept this case alive for over 6 decades, and follow the modern DNA investigation that brought new hope to a grieving family. From the small-town innocence of 1950s America to cutting-edge forensic science, this is a story about evil that refuses to stay buried, and a community's unwavering quest for justice. The Walker family never made it to Christmas, but their story and the search for their killer continues to this day. Content warning: this episode contains discussions of family violence, sexual assault, and crimes against children.
I tried calling them Friday night, but no one picked up. Christine always answered the phone, especially in the evenings. Always. The family car was parked at an odd angle. The front door stood slightly ajar, and there was something that hit me immediately: the complete absence of sound. No children playing, no radio, no signs of life from a home that should have been bustling with weekend activity. Just inside the front door, I found Cliff Walker face down in a pool of dried blood. Racing through the house, calling out for my sister, I discovered a scene that defied comprehension. Christine in the living room, evidence everywhere of a desperate fight for her life. 3-year-old Jimmy in his bedroom. And baby Debbie, 2-year-old Debbie in her crib, still clutching that little rag doll.
December 19th, 1959. A family of 4 brutally murdered in their rural Florida farmhouse. No witnesses, no clear motive, no arrests, just 4 graves and questions that have haunted investigators for over 60 years. Tonight we descend into one of America's most baffling family murders, a case that may connect to the killers immortalized in Cold Blood, and a reminder that sometimes evil walks right up to your front door. Welcome back to Deadly Intent, where we descend into the darkest corners of the human psyche to understand what drives ordinary people to commit extraordinary evil. I'm your host, Carman Carrion, and tonight I want to tell you about a family who celebrated their last Thanksgiving in November 1959. A family whose Christmas dreams were shattered by violence so brutal, so methodical, that it would forever change how we think about the monsters that walk among us. This is the story of the Walker family murders, a case that has haunted investigators for over 6 decades, a mystery that connects to one of America's most infamous crimes, and a reminder that evil doesn't knock before it enters our lives. The year was 1959. America was riding high on post-war prosperity. In rural Florida, among the orange groves and cattle ranches of Sarasota County, the small community of Osprey embodied everything wholesome about American life. It was here, on a dirt road that stretched through endless farmland, that Cliff and Christine Walker had built their version of the American dream. Picture a county fair in 1954, the air thick with the scent of cotton candy and hay, children's laughter mixing with carnival music. It was here that 20-year-old Clifford Walker first laid eyes on Christine Peltz, and by all accounts, it was love at first sight. Christine was 19, with auburn hair that caught the Florida sunshine, and a smile that could light up any room. She had a vivacious spirit that drew people to her like moths to a flame. Cliff, by contrast, was quiet and thoughtful, a hard-working farm boy who dreamed of owning his own land someday. Their courtship was everything sweet and innocent about that era. Evening walks along dusty roads, church socials where Christine's laugh could be heard above the crowd, chaperone dates at the local diner where Christine worked as a waitress, serving sweet tea and homemade pie to farmers and travelers. Mary Thompson, Christine's closest friend from high school, would later remember, they were just kids in love. Christine had this way of bringing Cliff out of his shell. When they were together, you could see him transform from the shy farm boy into someone who'd light up just being near her. Within 6 months, they were married in a small ceremony at the First Baptist Church of Sarasota. Christine wore her mother's dress, slightly altered to fit her petite frame. Cliff stood at the altar in his only suit, his calloused hands trembling slightly as he slipped the simple gold band onto Christine's finger. They started their married life in a rental property on the outskirts of Osprey, but their dreams were bigger than that small house. Cliff worked multiple jobs, farm labor during the scorching Florida days, mechanical work in the evenings when the heat finally broke. Christine contributed by taking laundry from neighboring families, though she primarily focused on creating a warm home for their growing family. Jimmy arrived in 1956, a robust baby boy with his father's quiet demeanor and his mother's bright, curious eyes. From the moment he could walk, he shadowed his father everywhere, carrying a toy toolkit and mimicking Cliff's every movement as he worked on farm equipment. Debbie followed in 1957, a spirited little girl who had inherited her mother's engaging personality and infectious laugh. She was rarely seen without her favorite rag doll, a gift Christine had lovingly sewn for her second birthday, complete with yarn hair and a dress made from scraps of Christine's own fabric. By 1959, the Walkers had achieved something remarkable. They were in negotiations to purchase their own 20-acre plot of farming land. But property deals in rural Florida were complicated affairs, involving boundary disputes and competing claims. Cliff had recently found himself entangled in just such a dispute, creating visible stress for the family. The last photographs of the Walker family were taken at their Thanksgiving gathering in November 1959. The images show a quintessential young American family. Christine beaming at the camera, holding Debbie in a new dress she'd sewn herself. Cliff standing proud beside them, one hand on Jimmy's shoulder, the other around his wife's waist. They looked, as one relative later observed, like a family with everything to live for. Christine had recently wallpapered the children's bedroom herself, choosing a pattern with small cowboys and horses that delighted Jimmy. She had written to her sister about her plans for Christmas. Homemade gifts were already hidden in the attic, and she was teaching the children carols to perform for their family gathering. Jimmy was known to follow his father around with that toy toolkit, while Debbie rarely went anywhere without her beloved rag doll, which she named Rosie after her grandmother. December 19th, 1959, dawned clear and unusually cool for Florida. The temperature had dipped into the low 50s overnight. For Christine's brother, Daniel McLeod, the day began with a nagging sense of unease that would prove tragically prophetic. The Walkers had missed a family gathering the previous evening, something entirely out of character for Christine, who was known for her religious attendance at family functions. I tried calling them Friday night, but no one picked up, Daniel would later tell investigators. Christine always answered the phone, especially in the evenings. Always. By early afternoon, after several more unanswered calls, Daniel decided to drive out to the Walker residence. The 20-minute drive along the dusty roads of rural Osprey felt interminable as he turned onto the long driveway leading to the Walker home. At approximately 2:30 p.m., several details immediately struck him as wrong. The family's car was parked at an odd angle near the house. The front door stood slightly ajar. Most tellingly, there was no sound of children playing, no response to his car's approach. The silence was unnatural, oppressive, heavy with menace. What Daniel discovered in the next few minutes would haunt him for the rest of his life. Just inside the front door, in the small entryway, where Christine always kept a bowl for car keys and mail, Daniel found Cliff Walker. His body lay face down in a pool of blood that had dried to a dark, rust-colored stain on the wooden floor. The position told the story of a man taken completely by surprise, shot while entering his own home, his keys still clutched in his hand. "Christine!" Daniel called out, his voice cracking with fear and growing panic. "Christine! Jimmy! Debbie!" He raced through the house, calling their names, praying for an answer. In the living room, Daniel found Christine. Overturned furniture, broken lamp bases, scattered papers, all evidence of a desperate struggle. Christine had not died quietly. She had fought with everything she had, fought for her life and the lives of her children. Her body bore the evidence of that struggle. Defensive wounds on her hands and arms, where she had tried to fend off her attacker. 3-year-old Jimmy was found in his bedroom, still in his pajamas, his small body positioned as if he had been asleep when death came for him. His toy toolkit lay scattered on the floor nearby. There were no signs of struggle in Jimmy's room. He had likely been killed in his sleep, unaware of the horror that had already claimed his parents. 2-year-old Debbie lay in her crib, still clutching her beloved rag doll Rosie. Her small face was peaceful in death, as if she were simply taking an afternoon nap. But the dark stain on her pajamas told the true story. Even baby Debbie had not been spared. Each member of the family had been shot, with what investigators would later describe as methodical precision. These weren't the panicked shots of an amateur. Each shot was deliberate, calculated, designed to kill efficiently and quietly. Daniel stumbled out of the house and drove to the nearest neighbor's house, barely able to speak as he asked them to call the police. Within 30 minutes of Daniel's call, the quiet Walker farmhouse had transformed into a hurricane of activity. The first law enforcement officer on the scene was Deputy Sheriff Carlton Wells, who would later describe what he saw as the worst thing I've seen in 20 years of police work. By 3:45 p.m., the property was swarming with law enforcement officials from multiple agencies. Before we dive deeper into the investigation, let me walk you through the timeline investigators pieced together. The final 24 hours of the Walker family's life, reconstructed from witness statements, forensic evidence, and bank records. Cliff Walker rises before dawn. As was his habit, neighbors report seeing lights in the Walker farmhouse kitchen, where Christine was preparing breakfast for the family. Christine and both children are spotted at Murphy's General Store, the small grocery store that served the rural Osprey community. Store owner Helen Murphy would later recall Christine seeming cheerful and relaxed, chatting about her Christmas baking plans. Little Debbie was fussing in her mother's arms, while 3-year-old Jimmy clutched a penny, deciding between candy options. Christine purchases ingredients for sweet potato pie, her signature dessert that neighbors often requested for special occasions. The receipt found later in the Walker kitchen showed she bought brown sugar, eggs, milk, and cinnamon. She mentioned to Mrs. Murphy that she planned to make several pies for Christmas gifts. 10:45 a.m. Cliff Walker is seen at Peterson's feed store, purchasing supplies for the livestock. Store clerk Robert Peterson noted that Cliff seemed a bit preoccupied, but attributed it to the ongoing land dispute. Cliff asked about winter feed prices and mentioned he might need to adjust his order depending on how the property deal progressed. 11:30 a.m., the most crucial entry in our timeline. Cliff Walker arrives at First National Bank of Sarasota. Bank teller Margaret Collins serves him as he cashes his weekly paycheck, $321.73. Collins would later tell investigators that Cliff seemed nervous, repeatedly checking the cash before folding it carefully into his wallet. This money, nearly $3,000 in today's currency, would later be found missing from his wallet. 12:15 p.m. Cliff stops at Henderson's hardware store, where he purchases a small repair part for his tractor. Owner Jim Henderson notices Cliff scanning the street frequently, as if watching for someone. When Henderson asks if everything is all right, Cliff responds, "Just got a lot on my mind with this land deal." 12:45 p.m. The family's neighbor, Mrs. Dorothy Hayes, reports seeing Christine hanging laundry on the line behind the Walker house. Both children are playing in the yard, Jimmy with his toy trucks in the dirt, Debbie sitting on a blanket with her rag doll. Mrs. Hayes waves from her kitchen window. Christine waves back and calls out a friendly "good afternoon." This is the last confirmed sighting of any family member alive. 1:30 p.m. Mail carrier Eugene Foster delivers a package to the Walker home. Christmas catalogs Christine had ordered from Sears and Montgomery Ward. He leaves the package on the front porch, as was common practice in rural areas. The package would later be found unopened, still sitting where Foster left it. 2 to 3 p.m. Based on forensic evidence and witness statements, investigators believed this was when the killer or killers began their final surveillance of the Walker property. Tire tracks found in a grove of trees about 200 yards from the house suggest someone parked there and observed the family's afternoon routine. 3:30 p.m. The Walker family gathers for their usual afternoon snack. Evidence found in the kitchen suggests Christine had been preparing sandwiches and milk for the children. Half-finished food on the table indicates this meal was interrupted. 4 to 4:30 p.m. The estimated time when the killer approached the Walker home. Based on the position of Cliff's body and the blood evidence, investigators believe he was returning from an errand, possibly checking on livestock or farm equipment, when he encountered his killer at the front door. 4:30 to 6 p.m. The murders occur. Forensic analysis suggests the killer spent considerable time in the house, moving methodically from room to room. The systematic nature of the search, combined with the sexual assault evidence, indicates the perpetrator remained in the house for at least 90 minutes after the killings. 6 p.m. Approximate time the killer leaves the Walker property. Neighbors report no unusual sounds or disturbances during the evening hours, suggesting the murders were carried out quietly and efficiently. 7:30 p.m. The Walker family fails to attend a dinner gathering at Christine's aunt's house. Family members try calling but receive no answer. However, it wasn't unusual for plans to change due to farm responsibilities or weather, so no one is immediately alarmed. December 19th, 1959. Saturday, 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. Daniel McLeod makes multiple attempts to contact his sister by telephone. Each unanswered call increases his concern, as Christine was known for always answering the phone, especially on weekends when she was home with the children. 2:30 p.m. Daniel McLeod arrives at the Walker property and makes the horrific discovery that would haunt him for the rest of his life. This timeline reveals something crucial about the killer's methods. He had been watching the family, learning their routines, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The timing of the attack, during the family's afternoon routine, when they would all be home but not yet prepared for evening activities, shows careful planning and patience. Here's what disturbs me most about this crime: the killer's absolute confidence throughout the entire ordeal. The killer spent hours inside the Walker home after committing the murders. Hours. He methodically searched every room, examined papers and documents, cleaned up after himself, possibly even ate food from their kitchen. Most killers, especially those committing their first family annihilation, would be operating on pure adrenaline, desperate to escape as quickly as possible. Not this killer. He was comfortable in the presence of death. He had the psychological control to conduct a thorough search while surrounded by the bodies of his victims. That level of composure in the aftermath of extreme violence suggests someone who had killed before, someone for whom murder was a familiar experience rather than a traumatic event. The killer's intent wasn't just to steal money. It was to send a message of complete control and finality. The initial processing of the Walker crime scene revealed several crucial details that would haunt investigators for decades. The murders had likely occurred the previous evening, December 18th. A .22 caliber weapon had been used. 8 shell casings were recovered throughout the house, each shot carefully placed for maximum lethality. Money was missing from Cliff's wallet. He had cashed a check for $321.73 the morning of December 18th. The house showed signs of having been systematically searched, but most valuables remained untouched. Christine's jewelry, a new television set, even cash in a kitchen drawer had been left behind. Most disturbing of all, the evidence clearly indicated that Christine had been sexually assaulted before her death. Let's talk about intent for a moment, because what happened to the Walker family wasn't random violence. It was calculated predation. Someone who made a conscious decision to target this family, to study their routines, to wait for the perfect moment to strike. The killer knew Cliff's schedule. He knew when the family would be home together, but not yet prepared for bed. He knew the layout of the house well enough to move efficiently from room to room. This level of knowledge doesn't happen by accident. It requires surveillance, planning, and most disturbingly, patience. Think about the psychology required to watch a family for days or weeks, to see Christine hanging laundry while her children played nearby, to observe Jimmy following his father around with that toy toolkit, to witness all this domestic happiness and still choose to destroy it. That's not the mindset of someone driven by desperation or rage. That's the cold calculation of a predator who views other human beings as prey. The ballistic evidence told its own story. All 8 shell casings came from the same .22 caliber weapon, likely a pistol that was never recovered. The .22 caliber choice itself reveals something about the killer's psychology. These aren't powerful guns, but they're quiet and require close-range shooting to be effective. The killer had to get close to each victim, had to see their faces, had to maintain composure while taking life after life. The blood evidence painted a horrific picture. In the entryway, the pattern indicated Cliff had been shot immediately upon entering the house. In the living room, the evidence told Christine's story of desperate resistance. Bloodstains on overturned furniture, drag marks across the floor. Dr. Michael Roberts, a forensic psychologist who analyzed the case, wrote, "The Walker murders show the hallmarks of an organized killer, someone who planned the attack, came prepared with weapons, and maintained control throughout the crime. But the sexual assault and overkill suggest a disorganized personality type. We're either looking at multiple perpetrators or someone with severe dissociative tendencies." The Walker family murders would become the largest criminal investigation in Florida's history up to that point. Lead Detective James Harrell transformed his office into a war room, with investigation boards covering every wall. For Harrell, the Walker case would become an obsession that defined the remainder of his career. Within the first week, investigators had interviewed over 100 potential witnesses and developed several promising leads. The most significant was a series of reports about a mysterious vehicle spotted in the area on December 18th. Multiple witnesses described seeing an unfamiliar car, dark-colored with out-of-state license plates, and 2 male occupants who seemed to be paying unusual attention to properties along the rural roads. Mrs. Eleanor Hayes provided the most detailed account. "I was hanging laundry when this car drove past real slow. The passenger was looking at houses like he was casing them or something." Despite an extensive search and multiple public appeals, the mysterious vehicle was never definitively identified. The land dispute angle seemed promising initially, but quickly led to dead ends. Detective Sarah Monroe spent months investigating this angle, uncovering a web of competing interests involving the property Cliff was trying to purchase. However, most potential suspects had solid alibis, and the violence seemed excessive for a property disagreement. Other theories emerged. escaped convicts, transient criminals, organized crime connections, but each had compelling evidence paired with frustrating limitations. By the summer of 1960, the investigation had hit what law enforcement professionals call the wall. Detective Harrell's summary report painted a picture of thorough professional police work that had nonetheless failed to identify the killer. 311 witnesses interviewed, 85 pieces of physical evidence collected, 71 potential suspects investigated and eliminated, generating over 2,000 pages of reports. On November 15, 1959, just 5 weeks before the Walker family murders, 2 paroled convicts murdered the Clutter family in Holcomb, Kansas. Richard Dick Hickok and Perry Smith would later be immortalized in Truman Capote's In Cold Blood. What wouldn't be discovered for decades was the timing. After killing the Clutters, Hickok and Smith fled to Florida, arriving on December 18, 1959, the exact day the Walker family was murdered. The similarities between the two cases were haunting. Both crimes involved the systematic murder of entire families in rural farmhouses. Both showed methodical planning and execution. Both included sexual assault components. Both homes had been systematically searched, with small amounts of cash taken, while valuable items remained untouched. Through later investigation and court records, a detailed timeline emerged. Hickok and Smith crossed back into Texas on December 17, 1959. Hotel receipts and gas station records showed they drove straight through to Florida, arriving on December 18th. They were spotted in Miami on December 19th, less than 24 hours after the Walker murders. Witness descriptions of the mysterious dark car matched their 1949 Chevrolet in remarkable detail. Both men exhibited unexplained cash spending after December 18th, despite claiming they were broke and desperate. Let's examine the psychological state Hickok and Smith were in when they arrived in Florida on December 18th. They had just committed one of the most notorious family murders in American history. They were being hunted by every law enforcement agency in the country. They were desperate, paranoid, and operating in a heightened state of violence. If they did kill the Walkers, it represents a terrifying escalation in their criminal intent. The Clutter murders were supposedly motivated by robbery. They believed there was money in the house. The Walker murders show a different intent entirely: killing for the sake of killing, violence for its own pleasure. The sexual assault component adds another disturbing layer. Hickok had a history of sexual violence, and the prolonged, sadistic nature of Christine's assault suggests someone taking pleasure in inflicting suffering. This wasn't about robbery or elimination of witnesses. This was about power, control, and sadistic gratification. If Hickok and Smith did kill the Walkers, their intent had evolved from criminal opportunism to pure predation. In 2012, Detective Kimberly McGath reopened the case with modern investigative techniques. Looking at the evidence through a modern lens, McGath noted, the similarities are impossible to ignore. McGath's investigation revealed new connections. Financial records showed Hickok and Smith were virtually penniless when they entered Florida, but had significant cash when they left. Vehicle analysis revealed tire impressions at the Walker crime scene that were consistent with 1949 Chevrolets. Behavioral analysis matched both men's psychological profiles with the contradictory nature of the Walker crimes. In December 2012, the Sarasota Sheriff's Office took an unprecedented step, exhuming the bodies of Hickok and Smith to extract DNA samples for comparison with Walker crime scene evidence. The results released in 2014 were frustratingly inconclusive. The degradation of biological material over 5 decades made definitive matching impossible. We couldn't prove Hickok and Smith committed these murders, explained Dr. Roberts, but we also couldn't rule them out. Detective McGath remained convinced despite the inconclusive results. The circumstantial case is overwhelming. The timing, the location, the methodology, the psychological profiles, everything points to Hickok and Smith. The in-cold-blood connection remains one of the most tantalizing aspects of the Walker case. What's undeniable is that the Walker murders occurred at the exact same time and place, where two known family killers were fleeing from justice, desperate for money, and operating in a state of escalated violence. The case continues to generate new leads. In 2023 alone, investigators received 47 tips through their dedicated hotline. Each is investigated with the same thoroughness that marked the original investigation in 1959. While this case is over 6 decades old, the investigation is far from dormant. The Sarasota County Sheriff's Office Cold Case Unit continues to actively work the Walker family murders. The case remains one of Florida's highest priority cold cases. Each tip is investigated thoroughly, as investigators know that even decades-old cases can be solved with the right information. The DNA evidence from the Walker case has been re-examined multiple times over the decades as forensic technology has advanced. The well-preserved evidence from 1959 continues to be valuable for testing with newer techniques as they become available. Modern forensic genealogy techniques, same methods used to solve the Golden State Killer case, represent the most promising current avenue for potential breakthrough. These techniques can extract and analyze trace DNA evidence that previous methods couldn't detect, even from samples that are decades old. The Walker case has found new life in the digital age. The Sarasota County Sheriff's Office maintains information about the case and accepts tips through digital channels. Social media and true crime interest have generated new leads over the years. True crime podcasts and documentaries have brought renewed attention to the case, sometimes generating tips from people who remember family stories or inherited documents that might be relevant. Despite the inconclusive DNA results from the 2012 exhumation, the in-cold-blood connection remains a focus of investigation. The timing and similarities between the two cases continue to be too significant for investigators to dismiss. Recent analysis has included re-examining prison records, correspondence, and any previously overlooked connections between the Kansas and Florida cases. The murders continue to affect the Osprey community more than 60 years later. The area where the Walker farmhouse once stood is now a residential development, but the case remains part of local history and memory. The case is taught at law enforcement academies as an example of how evidence preservation and persistent investigation can keep cold cases viable for decades. It's also studied as a classic example of organized crime scene behavior in criminal justice programs. As forensic technology continues to advance, the Walker case evidence remains available for testing with new techniques. The case file is regularly reviewed for any overlooked connections or evidence that might benefit from modern analysis. The case has attracted international attention from criminology and forensic science programs, becoming a subject of academic study worldwide due to its complexity and the quality of evidence preservation. Members of the extended Walker family remain engaged with the investigation and maintain contact with law enforcement. The family continues to hope that advancing technology or new information will eventually provide the answers they've sought for over 6 decades. The case remains active with the Sarasota County Sheriff's Office as technology continues to advance and new forensic techniques become available. There remains hope that the Walker family murders may eventually be solved. Anyone with information about the Walker family murders is encouraged to contact the Sarasota County Sheriff's Office. The case demonstrates that even decades-old crimes can potentially be solved with the right combination of preserved evidence, advancing technology, and new information from the public. The question that remains. On a quiet December afternoon in 1959, 4 lives ended brutally in a modest Florida farmhouse. In the decades since, the Walker family murders have evolved from a local tragedy to a testament to the enduring nature of justice and the evolution of criminal investigation. The case remains officially open. The evidence, carefully preserved through 6 decades, awaits new technological advances that might finally provide answers. Each year brings new tools, new techniques, and new hope for resolution. What makes the case particularly haunting is the quality of the evidence. Unlike many cold cases from that era, the Walker murders were meticulously documented. The physical evidence was extensive and well preserved. Everything needed to solve the case was probably there, somewhere in those thousands of pages of reports. The Walker family home no longer stands, demolished in 1999 to make way for development. In the Osprey Cemetery, 4 graves commemorate the family. As this investigation continues, 4 simple questions echo through time. Who killed the Walker family? Why were they targeted? Will modern science finally provide answers? When will justice finally be served? The Walker case exemplifies both the evolution of investigative techniques and the enduring importance of basic police work. It serves as a teaching tool at law enforcement academies. The Walker family murders force us to confront uncomfortable truths about the nature of evil and the limits of justice. Sometimes, the most disturbing cases aren't those where we know who committed the crimes, but those where the perpetrator remains a shadow, a possibility, a question mark that refuses resolution. As I close this case file, I'm left thinking about December 18th, 1959. Somewhere, someone made a decision that day. Someone chose to drive to that isolated farmhouse. Someone chose to end 4 innocent lives. Someone walked away from that scene and continued living while the Walkers' dreams died with them. That person or persons may be long dead now, but the choices they made that December day continue to reverberate through time, a reminder that evil, once unleashed, casts shadows that can last forever. The search for justice continues, and somewhere in the evidence rooms and case files, the truth waits to be discovered. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the darkness. If you have any information about the Walker family murders, please contact the Sarasota County Sheriff's Office Cold Case Unit. Remember, evil often wears the mask of normalcy. Trust your instincts. Protect your loved ones, and never forget that some monsters walk among us in broad daylight. Until next time, stay safe, stay vigilant, and beware the deadly intent that lurks in the human heart.